on this debate we got on these Bill and Meyer, the pictures he took of those UFOs, and these fellers are having a debate on it. We're picking up on it.
The planet Venus.
Well, you said
are images from NASA.
You said blatant hoax.
So when Billy Meyer says he went to the planet Venus and took photographs of it while orbiting that planet, and those photographs matched America and images from outer space, that's obviously proof that Meyer was not telling the truth. Okay, when Meyer photographs dinosaurs and they are stills from a B movie,
well, that's not really are stills from a B movie. Do we know the producer, the director, and the distributor?
Rent the movie King Dinosaur, Jim. Again, get the book and look at it. If you can disprove it, go ahead. I will, as Art knows, go on and apologize and admit errors. I admit when I'm wrong, okay? And nobody has come through here and has shown it. Jim, you haven't even looked at the book. At least I've read all the other 14 Meyer books.
I'm a very busy person. I have many things to do. And when I investigate your contentions, Cal, and I just don't find any merit in the methodologies, I excuse you from my agenda and I continue on.
Fine, Jim, but what kind of investigation are you doing if you don't even open the book? If you read it every time you sat down on the bathroom, you'd be done with it by now. It's been out for a few years.
I would give more regard to your book than my background.
Well, apparently not, because you haven't even opened it, Jim.
All right, but again, we're arguing about, we know he hasn't read the book, and you've both seen the same photographs, one believing they're absolutely genuine, the other believing they're absolutely a hoax.
And people that are known skeptics, ranging from Michael Malin to Eric Eliasson and others, who all signed non-disclosures that we went to in an attempt to understand what we had here. And I don't think that I could get Michael Malin to lie for me. Michael, in the book Lightyear, said that he thought I was optimistic, jovial, a believer, but he didn't say anything that he could find to be a hoax in the Meyer case. And I find that very revealing. I find that very revealing. And if we were trying to create a hoax, or if Meyer was perpetrating a hoax, and we were all naively entrapped by it, what a wild thing we did.
Jim, there's no question about the credentials of Dr. Malin. Now, did he make a specific statement, as you just suggested, that he found nothing in the Meyer photographs to suggest hoax?
That is correct.
Okay, Art, let me tell you what Malin said, and he's quoted in the book.
Have you talked to him?
Yes, a long time ago. It says here, and this is also in Lightyears, by the way, so you might want to quote Lightyears more accurately.
Okay.
It says here, the quote, the important thing would have been to have the original film. Without the very detailed information about the original, there's almost nothing you can say. Then, according to Malin, he had requested from you, Jim, quote, stuff that actually went through the camera.
I don't know that, but
I'm quoting Malin, okay?
he found it to be a hoax on the same thing that Dr. Malin could find no evidence of.
Yes, that does seem rather telling. In other words, Cal, you have declared these photographs to be a hoax, minus the negatives. And Dr. Malin said it was not possible to make that judgment minus the negatives.
Where is that quote that Malin said that? I'm not familiar. That's the first I've ever heard of that.
No, I'm taking that from Jim. Jim?
Well, I don't have the book in front of me, but in the overall body of work from Michael Malin, and Michael is not a friend of mine, he's not an enemy of mine, he's an acquaintance of mine, and I sought him out as an expert. Remember, that was my job. My job was to find people that were quality credentials, that were experts, that we could go to, and I had no silver mind control or capability of hypnotizing these people to state our opinion. they state their opinion. I did not write the books. I did not publish the books. I was the scout. I found these people, and their comments are their own. They are not saying my words. They are saying their words.
Even you, Cal, a moment ago, I believe, quoted Malin, and I didn't hear any portion of it that suggested he said it was a hoax.
So all he said is that without the original negative, there's nothing you can say.
You, Calport, have said something without the original negatives.
Yes, because the photos you're referring to, Art, I've got over 115 in there. The photos that Del Toto's referring to, they tested 4 pictures. 4.
Well, we have more than that, but we use 4 as a control group to take to many, many different laboratories.
And the very photo art that we were arguing over earlier, the very first series, was not among the 4. I looked at more than 4 pictures and made
To it, and
excuse me, Jim, please don't interrupt me. Thank you. The photographs that Malin looked at are not the ones that, we're not talking about the same pictures. Meyer has taken like something like over 1,000 pictures. The numbers changed here and there, but he's taken quite a lot. And I admit, and I'm very honest about this, that I have not analyzed every single photo Meyer ever took because
you ever analyze any photos?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Have you ever analyzed any photo?
Yes, and the book is 439 pages, Jim, of that analysis and then some, including the photos of the dinosaurs,
We had a snappy back then. Wouldn't it be great if back then we would have had a snappy? What was the resolution of the snappy?
Oh, it can go 1024 by something, and I can go way up.
Across how many lines per inch is that?
Well, I'm not exactly sure. It's you tell me, Jim. You're the expert.
Well, a snappy can go 1024 across the whole screen, but usually that video is 400 lines across the whole screen, but a snappy isn't great. In any case, I just wondered, Cal, if you personally had ever tested any of the pictures, or whether Richard Haynes, as you have said in the video, helped you sneak into NASA to test pictures, which you doesn't remember, or Bruce Maccabee, and who I have a high regard for the GSW, were the sole basis for your test.
Jim, if you read the book, you would know that that information is in there, and the answer is no. And Maccabee's endorsement is in the book. It begins the chapter that starts analyzing Meyer's pictures.
He endorses his own formulas, or he endorses your findings by applying his formulas in your own way?
No, he is saying, and again, you have to read the book, Jim, that the formulas regarding optical physics and calculating distance that I used to make my determinations on way more Meyer photos than you ever studied were essentially correct. And he was responding specifically to a statement made by Wendell Stevens in the MUFON Journal that my analysis was not correct.
Ooh, I have an idea. Why don't we collect all these Meyer photographs, put them on our film's website, and have a variety of people download the pictures and test them again?
I am more than happy to upload images to Mr. Bell's website, especially of Planet Venus and the dinosaurs and other stuff that I don't even think you would endorse.
Well, I did invite both of you to upload photographs prior to the debate this evening, didn't I?
Yes, that's correct. I was
Cal?
not a major participant.
I'm sorry?
Cal, did I not invite you to upload photographs?
You asked me for images of the cover of the book.
No, Cal. I said I gave you my webmaster's address, and I said send him any photographs you would like supporting your story.
Okay, then I will be happy to do that.
Do you recall that, Cal?
I guess so, yeah. If you, I'll be happy to do it, and if I don't do it, then feel free to tell the world I haven't done it, but I'll be happy to.
Well, at this point, I'm only telling the world what I what our discussion was prior to the program tonight. It was the same with you as it was with Jim.
Well, I'm sorry, Art, if I did not get the invitation to upload all these photos.
I gave you my webmaster's address.
I understand that. I still have it on the post-it notepad here.
All right, you said
Upload any image.
all right, you take that out. So when we come back, the Phoenix Lights. This is Coast to Coast AM. It was about a year ago. Actually, we just passed the anniversary. It was March 13th, a little better than a year ago, when shortly after 8 o'clock in the evening, a series of events occurred in Phoenix, or over Phoenix, depending on your point of view, which still are absolutely astounding. Now, this is a case, this is a contemporary case. It is a case which we have significant photographic evidence of, and significant eyewitness evidence of, and we will find out areas of disagreement. In this case, the Phoenix Lights, what's called the Phoenix Lights case, with our two guests, Cal Korff and Jen Delatoso, in just a moment. And we'll get to the rough stuff. So, one thing at a time. First of all, the lights is in dark. All right, again, we will leave the Meyer case in this place. I will invite both of these gentlemen, and I will repeat to them, if necessary, my webmaster's address, to send photographs to be examined by all of you out there. And we can even set up voting on it if you wish. Let us now move to another topic, and that is the Phoenix Lights. March 13th, a little better than a year ago. It's the biggest contemporary UFO. And you notice I'm not saying alien craft or anything else. I'm saying UFO, unidentified flying object case that we've got in modern times, as far as I know. So I would like to hear a discussion between the two of you in the areas which you disagree. Shortly after 8 o'clock, people began seeing things in Phoenix, big things. Jim, I know that there's an argument and a difference between the 8 or 8:30 sightings and the 10 and 10:30 sightings. Where did the two of you differ?
Well, I don't know what Cal Korff's contention is, other than he claimed that he had video that showed flares with smoke and things like that, which have yet to be demonstrated. Let me tell you what happened. About 8 o'clock, 7:50, there were reports that got sent to Peter Davenport. The first one was in Paulden, Arizona, in the northwestern part of the state, by a former retired policeman who was calling this number for the first time because he was seeing something that was startling to him. And it was a large array of lights in the V formation. For the next 3 hours, reports not only came in to Peter Davenport, but came into every television station, police station, and government agency in the state, as this array of lights flew from the northwestern part of the state to the central part of Phoenix, Arizona, right through the central corridor, over the air traffic corridor, down to Tucson, and turned around and came back and left the state and was last seen in Henderson, Nevada. We took over 400 reports in 10 months. We built a map that connected the dots and showed that the flight path was consistent, and that there was not 2 events, 5 events, 8 events, 10 events, but one event. One event. With an object that morphed, had lights, join it, leave it, dock it, fly around, wait, come back, hover, disappear, reappear, and it was unusual. Reports of airplanes, flares, objects seen by air traffic controllers on radar, citizens, astronomy classes, and the controversy of at least a year, if not a decade, vote. I stand by the reports of the witnesses who saw formations of lights different than any cluster of airplanes, flares, and aerial phenomena that they had ever seen. And I stand by to this moment, including skepticism from, with all due respect, astronomers like Dr. Scowen, who say that my techniques are less than adequate because they don't understand them fully. I stand by contention that something important happened, not just relating to Phoenix, Arizona, but to our entire understanding of the UFO phenomena on this planet.
There are many people who agree with Jim Dilettoso with regard to Phoenix Light situation. Cal, what are your criticisms of Jim's work in this area?
Well, before I address that, I need to make one thing very clear. I think that what happened that night, and I got very interested in it because it happened to be my birthday, so my birthday got interrupted.
Oh, cool.
It was one of those things. It happens. I think there was a hodgepodge of events that night, and I am very honest in saying that I do not have an explanation for the earlier reports. The reports of this V-shaped object, I don't know what to make of that. The only bones of contention I've had are with the fact that the squadron commander that did drop flares at the precise location of the 10 o'clock event, I think those were flares, but I think people saw a lot of things that night, and a lot of those reports remain unexplained. And unfortunately, our government's attitude towards the UFO subject and the American people is one of apathy. They don't care. They didn't come out and say, hey, here's what happened. People had to go digging for it, and that's inexcusable.
Do you remember the name of the squadron commander who dropped the flares?
He was in the Discovery Channel documentary, Jim, where they disproved your flare analysis.
Yeah.
You remember that?
Lieutenant Colonel Tanaka was not in Arizona.
Well, according to his testimony in the Discovery documentary, he was.
Yeah, that has been subsequently denied by himself and others that he was not actually in Arizona when he said we did this and we did that. He was representing the affairs of the squadron as had been reported to him, and I invite anyone who is interested to call the Maryland Air National Guard and talk to Lieutenant Colonel Tanaka and ask him.
All right, let's try and settle this. I believe that I've heard Cal make allegations that you, Jim, fraudulently took some of the 8 o'clock material, we'll call it that, and morphed it into 10 o'clock material. Is that accurate, Cal?
No, all I'm saying is that there were a lot of events going on that night, and that it's not possible scientifically to say everything seen up there was all due to a UFO. Elbach was out that night. There was a refueling operation. There are unexplained, to this day, reports of V-shaped objects. There was also a V formation that seemed to change shape, and there were flares that were dropped. There was a hodgepodge of things going on, Art, and I think you have to take each individual case on its own individual merit.
Okay, so you have never said that he took 8 o'clock early material and tried to present it as later material.
As best as I can recall, okay, and if I'm wrong, please correct me, a long time ago, months ago, because I haven't really talked about this since I was filming with the Discovery Channel production, that to say that the 10 o'clock event were flares, or were not flares, I disagree with that. I think the earlier reports remain unexplained and should be researched further. I'm ashamed as an American citizen that our government doesn't seem to care what its own people think. I think that's unfortunate. And but I do believe that the events caught on video that got so much attention were flares at 10 o'clock, and that's a separate event from the earlier reports that remain unexplained. And I want to remind everybody that I myself did see a UFO years ago, and I don't have an explanation for it today. That's one of the reasons.
Cal, if you really feel that way, Cal, about our government, in a letter that you wrote on the internet, in part, you said, are you listening, Bob Dean, Wendell Stevens, Michael Hessman, Billy Meyer, Jaime Maussan, Lee Britt Elders, Tom Welsh, Tom King, Bill Hamilton, Francis Emma Bartlett, Stephen Bassett, who often borrows Jim's car. The list is much longer because the UFO field is overloaded with con artists and people who have an agenda that is not based on the truth. Did you write that?
Yes, and the UFO field does have con artists in it.
Well, then why would you include Emma Barwood, for example, who did nothing more than simply request that the government act as you just suggested it should?
In what sense, Art?
Honesty and openness, and be willing to investigate these sorts of things. In other words, you seem to be taking on Emma Barwood.
No, what I'm saying is that, and I say this in the internet post, that there are a series of exposés coming out by journalists. One of them came out last week in the Phoenix News-Times, where the UFO subject has gotten so much attention, Art, that it's got the attention of the journalists, and this is great. Now the burden is on the UFO field to present its best evidence, and what has happened with the Phoenix News-Times is this reporter went and double-checked some of the claims in my book, started to go back to scientists that had problems with Delatoso's analysis, and he wrote a piece that quotes these people saying that there are problems here. And I know for a fact that there are other similar type exposés coming out, and, you know, like, if you look at what he quoted from me, he just listed the quotes from the book. There wasn't any single quote from me, and I don't want to get involved in those things. I want to focus instead, as I mentioned on the internet, that I'm trying to see if we can get the government to declassify UFO documents that I think we have a legal right to have in our possession. If we can just learn what the government knows about UFOs, we'll certainly be way more knowledgeable than we know now, which is not very much.
Well, I don't see how that position differs from Ms. Barwood's position.
I don't know of any active campaign from Barwood to write a bunch of letters to Air Force representatives. I know she has called for an investigation.
Oh, she has written to her state senator. She has tried to initiate all kinds of investigations now.
Yes, she's contacted several people, but she has not gone back systematically, and I think it's because she's not a UFO researcher, which is not her fault at all. She's running for office the way that we're starting to do, in that we're approaching the same agencies like the NSA and saying, look, the Supreme Court ruled years ago that you guys could withhold this UFO data for national security reasons. Well, now that the Cold War is over, can we go back to that decision, and can you let us have the data? We're not interested in compromising national security. I'd like to think there's a way for them to say, yeah, it was an unidentified event, but we don't need to know the names of agents that might have reported those or compromised their safety.
All right, but again, Cal, to be fair, these are your words. You talked about all these people and then said the list is much longer, meaning names, because the UFO field is overloaded with con artists and people who have an agenda that is not based on the truth. Now that puts all of those people, your own words, into that category, Cal.
Well, I don't think it does, Art. I don't have that in front of me, but
these are your words.
The UFO field is overloaded with people like that. I also stated in my other book that every other area of scientific inquiry has its problems, and what we need to do is raise the standards of evidence and science, kick out the data for peer review. That's why I put over 500 footnotes in my book, so that people could check it. And that's just the way you document things.
Do you take issue, Cal, with what Jim said, that it was not two events or separate events, but one event?
I think that there were several events that night. Everything from Hale-Bopp to a military operation to flares to unidentified flying objects.
Well, Hale-Bopp was visible to everybody with a clear sky all across the country.
But it was still an event that night. A lot of people were out that night watching Hale-Bopp. But my point, Art, is that several things were seen that night, some of which remain unexplained, and I have no problem admitting that I'm baffled by those reports.
So one interesting thing to think about is if there are extraterrestrials, as we all have been following a passion in our lives to find out, whether it's Cal Korff or Art Bell and many of thousands of millions of others, what if extraterrestrials said, of an attempt to communicate not just with human beings, but with government, military, and many other officials, and did something. Now we are doing what we agreed we would. Throw out the baby with the bathwater. And we are purposefully attempting to discredit, for personal reasons, aspects of a Rosetta Stone. And I'm not saying that that is it. I'm saying that as an optimist, combined with my skepticism, so therefore I'm an optimist, what if, and I'm just saying what if, we should look at the truth of the chief of the Gila River Indians, who said the lakes were directly overhead, not 30 miles away at the gunnery range, but directly overhead. And if there were pilots and military people and National Guard and cross-section of humans, like the day the Earth stood still, wondering, confused, interested, looking for collaboration. And all of a sudden, we have the dichotomy that has prevented them from overt communications materialized live and in front of us. And here we are manifesting it live on the radio, discussing things that are trivial in their view of trying to have humans understand that here they are. And we have petty collusion, collaborations, and conspiracies trying to discredit something that was really interesting, and really important, being cast aside in favor of some earlier agenda. And that is what has happened in the Phoenix Light. Cal, I forgive you for convincing Erskine and Motzer to go to all the local media and attempt to discredit me. We all know that you were behind Erskine and Motzer parading your book to every local media here in town. Let us not forget that we all hope that there are extraterrestrials, whether they're part of our spiritual nature or not, looking at us, wondering what we're going to do. Just pretend that for a moment. And here we are, discussing flares or not flares. Everyone knows that extraterrestrials come here. Everyone knows those were not flares. Even Dr. Scowen, who challenged my procedure, knows that it's correct. And I felt good today as I talked to my peers, Dr. McAfee, Dr. Cornett, Dr. Colorado, hopefully Dr. Malin will agree to review my procedure. Everyone knows that my procedure was correct, but we have a duty to be a skeptic and to adhere to a prior agenda and throw mud at all this and hope that once again we can prevent any further understanding that extraterrestrials may really come here and this may have been an event. So, John?
Well, it's kind of hard to respond to that. If Jim wants to think that I've got people out doing whatever that's just right, maybe he's going to blame me for the Tony Ortega article.
Well, I don't know all better.
Please, Jim, please don't.
Give her a chance to respond.
Please don't. Yeah, thank you, Art. Whatever Tony Ortega wrote and what those people said about you, Jim, I had nothing to do with that, okay? In fact, I was shocked to find out that Ken Dinwiddie of Dianza Systems even went on record because he had turned down numerous interviews, and I was shocked to find out that he validated what I had quoted him in my book about you. Jim, let me finish. I am all for the scientific study of UFO reports, okay? I'm for that. I have seen something that I still can't explain. I'm fairly familiar with a lot of what flies in the air, and I'm still stumped years later. And, I'm trying to get to the truth, and that's why I want to, I'm not going to go ahead and write another Meyer book. I'm going to go ahead and try to focus my efforts working with a small group of people to go ahead and try to put pressure on the government through the media and in correspondence with them to say, hey, you did all the records that are not declassified on UFOs. Can we, reach some compromise and try to go ahead and get that information? The CIA, for example,
Relying on other
Jim, you're interrupting me again.
They're not going to allow you to be given.
Gentlemen, let me interrupt both of you because we are at the top of the hour. And when we get back, we will jump into the meat of this. There was an article in the Phoenix New Times recently that got all of this going afresh, which was an expose type article. And we will discuss that article when we get back. Once again, here I am. Good morning, everybody. We have a debate well underway at this hour. The debate horrors are Cal K. Korth, who is said by many, though he would probably deny it, to be something of a debunker. Cal Korth has a book called The Billy Meyer Story, Spaceships of the Pleiades. And again, for those of you just joining, he is president and CEO of Total Research, a think tank dedicated to studying humankind's most enduring mysteries and phenomena. He is a popular author and lecturer. Now, on the other side, we have Jim Dilettoso. Jim runs something called Village Labs in Phoenix, or in the Phoenix area, I guess you really ought to say. Jim has been at that for about 15 years. Prior to that time, he was in the entertainment field for 15 years. That represents their backgrounds. Thus far, we have discussed the Billy Meyer case with a resolution culminating in an invitation to post photographs on the website so the audience can decide for themselves, which I hope will occur. We have been discussing the Phoenix Lights situation, the anniversary of which just passed. Coming up, we're going to get into a bit more, if you can imagine that, of a contentious category, and I'll sort of make that clear to you, or how that's going to be clear to you will be in a very few moments. First, I want to talk to you about something fun, all right? It is fun. I do it, as I said last night, with some trepidation, but nevertheless, I do it. I refer, of course, to my famous trepidation changer, my very famous voice changer. Trepidation is the right word. I can suddenly go like this, and I can make my voice sound any way I want. And I usually use this to, sound like Madonna who's down there. But I can sound any way I want it, so can you. Now watch this. All of a sudden, if I want to talk to somebody, I can run it right up on here, and I can say, I'm sorry, Mr. Bell's not home right now. Come back later, please. I can literally make my voice sound any way I want. I can slowly lower it to the point where you can barely understand it. That's what I can do with my voice changer, and that's what you can do with your voice changer. That's right. Now, there are a lot of uses for a voice changer that I would not consider to be particularly moral or proper, and we urge you not to do those. Moreover, those of you who get one and call my show with it will be struck by a bolt of moral lightning. However, having said all that, if you want to have more fun than you've had your whole life, we got it right here. The telephone voice changer, a digital processor that uses 16-bit digital technology to do your voice when you it's easy to use. You don't have to wire anything. It uses 3 AA batteries, and it goes in between 2 seconds flat to plug it in. The Seacrane company has them. If you would like one, which of course you would promise to use with all due ethics and morality and all the rest of it, right? They'll be sold out, gone. So if you want one, call Bob Payne in the morning, again, $69.95, and they will not last. The number is 1-800-522 8863. You can begin calling at 7:30 in the morning Pacific, 10:30 Eastern, at 1-800-522-8863. The Secret Company has zero. You want the ignition system Art Bell has on his Hot Rod Metro. It's like a heart transplant for your car. That's 1-800-627-8800 and www.jacobselectronics.com.
All right, before we leave the Phoenix question, is there anything any points either one of you would like to make with regard to Phoenix?
Well, this is Jim Miller. Excuse me, I'm feeding my cat.
All right.
Hal stated to a number of people that he had a video of the Phoenix Lights event that clearly showed smoke and evidence of flares that, according to Mike Fortune, he was going to post a few days after they met during the show, which has yet to show up on the net. I wonder if Cal had that forthcoming.
Cal.
I am not writing a report on the Phoenix Lights with the Discovery Channel and the Area 51 special. There is a report being written by the MUFON group. I've turned all the data over. There's some other stuff that I'm digging up that I'm going to send over, so I'm sure that information will come out. But I am trying to focus on the government document effort. That's where my focus is, and since the government has started to send memos, that's why I've had to abandon Phoenix stuff and go over there.
Well, you did say that you were going to post that.
It was my intention to post it, yes.
But if you have the video, why don't you just spend the 10 minutes and post it?
It's not as simple, so I don't like to post images that legally I might not have those.
But you do it all the time.
No, I don't, Jim.
What a joke.
If I was back in the home state of Washington, I could tell you exactly who the two people were. I'm sorry I haven't bothered to memorize data that's over.
Do you recall how you came upon this video?
Yeah, what happened, and I posted, and I told Peter Davenport this, because this upset me, Art. There are some people out there that seem to enjoy calling out Peter Center, which, he has no idea these people are not telling him the truth, and they're sandbagging the database, and that really upsets me. And, Peter, if you want to know, which incident I'm talking about, I'll give you that data. I haven't heard from Peter. I know he's very busy, but, Art, that's why I wrote the Meyer book, because there's nothing wrong with cleansing the UFO database of cases that are spurious. Just like if we find something that is unexplained, like some of these Phoenix reports, we have to call it like it really is.
Okay, again, though, the question was, do you recall how you came upon that piece or that
Yeah, it was sent to me just like I've received maybe 5 or 6 copies of this Mexico City footage that's going to air on UPN. I mean, I get stuff all the time.
So you're saying it was sent anonymously?
No, it wasn't sent anonymously. It included a letter by 2 people, one of whom didn't even give their last name, and...
Say, that's anonymous. That's virtually anonymous.
Well, because there was a first and last name on one and just a first name of the other, and the person that wrote the letter was just referring to his friend by the first name. That's all. So, unlike the Mexico City footage, unlike the Mexico City footage where we have no names at all, at least that I know of, I wouldn't call it anonymous. Anonymous, by my definition at least, is when we don't have
somebody who said something like, Jim gave this to me.
What?
I'm going back and reconstructing what you just said. Police footage from somebody who sent you a letter and signed it with a first and last name and said something like Jim or Frank.
No, what it was is this person said he was out with his friend, gave the first name, didn't give the last name, and that we, quote unquote, I don't know whether he means literally we as in a literal sense or we as in a royal we sense, that they shot this.
Also, the letter claimed that they were the originators of this video.
They said that they had shot it, but they didn't really have any more info other than they shot it.
And it shows smoke.
I'm sorry?
And it shows smoke.
It shows some lights going in and out of focus, and when they're out of focus, you see what looks like smoke. But I can't even tell what part of the country it was shot in. There's nothing there that shows you anything. It's like looking at a photograph of a pond that only shows water. You can't prove where it was shot.
So your discussion with Mike Forster during the Lisa show taping where you said you had proof that the Phoenix lights were flares because you had video with smoke has since diminished just a hair.
No, Jim, I think that's an inaccurate characterization. What happened is because I was behind in even posting the stuff, because one of the problems when I post stuff on the internet, Nixon was upset that I didn't send it to him literally 2 days later. But at the time, I was involved, I had a higher priority, and I'll tell you what that higher priority was. I was on the road doing the Lisa show, as you know, when Art Bell was likely on me for incorrect information when I had said that Art was trying to censor me from radio stations. Well, I prioritized everything I did to give Art the data he needed, and as you know, Jim, you're the one who sent letters to the radio stations saying that if they put me on KFYI, you were going to sue them.
All right, we're going to get to all of that in a moment. Just before we do, we have an opportunity to is Peter Davenport from the UFO Reporting Center in Seattle. Peter, welcome to the fray.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
What do you have to add?
I just wanted to get one comment in here briefly. I just a moment or two ago heard Cal Corp state that he had reported such and such to me. I have not talked to Cal Corp since July of 1995. That is the last time that he and I ever spoke. I just heard that point. He did state definitively that he and I had spoken. We have not met.
Where did I say you and I spoke? I believe I said that I posted on the internet.
I just heard you on the program state that you had reported to me, you had talked to me.
I had posted a internet open mail, which was to you and the public saying that there were some people who were sandbagging you, and I didn't like that, okay?
No, what you said was you were very disappointed. You twisted the facts. I have a copy of your email. That is not what you said. What did I say? That you were very Ripple had done a better job. That's what the email says.
Peter, why don't you read, instead of just the selected part, why don't you read the part?
Well, Carol, did you say that in the email? I mean, let's stick to one thing at a time here.
Are we going to address the other issue, Art?
Look, we can get to it indeed, but let's take them one at a time. Did you say that?
I said that, of course, that I felt that we were more objective. I did say that, and that is my personal opinion. Because what I've seen in the UFO field, Art, which does bother me, is that it used to be in the 70s that nobody had a problem with most UFO reports remaining unidentified, okay, or rather, most UFO reports being honest, simple mistakes. What I've seen a lot of researchers now do is tend to defer to the UFO explanation as the default when we have to be very careful. I don't have a problem with 5 or 10% of the reports being unexplained or worthy of time to be studied. Most people make honest mistakes, report honestly what they think they saw, but not every UFO report is an extraterrestrial spacecraft. That the debris that was Russian rocket debris decaying, when he was convinced that those were UFO reports, well, I had a problem with that, and it did bother me that that position was taken, and I expressed that. But I'm
on another matter, and that was a matter less than 5 minutes ago. I heard you, Cal, state that you had talked to me, you had reported such and such to me, and so on. I immediately went to the telephone. Let me finish my point, if you would, please. Sure. I immediately went to the telephone because you and I have not talked since July. We have not talked on the telephone. We have not talked in person. We've had no direct communications, Cal, since July of 1995.
And what was the email to you, Peter? What was that?
So that was an email sent to me by another party who said, this is what Cal Corp is saying.
I didn't send that to another party, Peter. Pardon? That email was sent to several people, one of which was you, and you never got back to me to say, Cal, which repel? It was not sent to me. It was me by another person. You're dead wrong.
And you stated less than 10 minutes ago on this program that you reported to me, I did whatever the case that is dead wrong. If you disagree with what I'm saying here, please state the precise date and time that we spoke or under what conditions, and we will test that theory.
Peter, I went ahead and made it very clear that I had communicated with you via email. It's on nothing. You can look at the archive. That's not how I heard people who went ahead and said that they had told me that they were calling up and making up reports. And I think that that's a horrible thing to do. What we will do is go back
through the tape of this program. This is what you said less than roughly 10 minutes ago. and establish whether you were saying it was email communication or we got the distinct impression you were talking to me.
We can run the tape back if necessary.
Let's do it.
Feel free to. I'm talking to you now. I'm sorry, but I did send you that email, Peter, and you know we're asking which report.
Well, you sent me a copy of the email you sent me because I have never received a direct email from CalCorp. It's that simple.
Well, Peter, it's in the record, and if you're aware of it, obviously you are, because you're citing it. How come you never asked me?
I just stated that the email was sent to me by a third party who intercepted it and said this is what CalCorp is saying about the hotline. It was acted in it.
The reason I think this is an important issue is because Cal has said, Cal, you mentioned in the same vein as you mentioned your discussions with Peter recently. So it makes this issue rather important.
You agree this time, Cal, that you and I have had no conversations on the telephone or in person?
I didn't say on the telephone.
I haven't had a conversation on the telephone or in person since July of '95.
Yeah, you can answer that.
And I never said I did, Art.
No, I'm asking you now, Cal.
You do agree now that you have not talked with you since July of 1995.
I agree that I have not talked in person on the phone with him. I did send him an email and also went to UFO Updates, that if he didn't get it and someone intercepted it, which I don't understand what that means, so that's not my problem.
I haven't ever received an email from you, Cal.
Well, I can't control that. If I send an internet email, I can't control if it does or doesn't get there. I have people send me emails and AOL will bounce them. Sometimes that happens, Peter.
We're not going to be able to settle whether or not you can argue about that till the cows come home. However, Peter, if you would like to, I presume you're taping, Peter?
Yes, I am.
So if you would like to take the opportunity between now and the bottom of the hour break to rewind that tape and play back the segment in question. Would you like to do that?
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. I'll see if I can find it.
All right, I'm going to put you on hold, Peter. Very good. All right. In the meantime, now you're back on with Jim. Jim, you want to interject something here?
Yeah, this is great. I wonder if I should order some popcorn.
You're playing to take that, whatever it is. I sent that email.
This is going to be a nice way of settling that.
Well, it's in the archive, in the updates archive.
Yes, but the reason that he called, he was saying that you had just stated on the air that you had talked to him.
And I explained what I just meant by that, Art. Also, I used the word talked as in that, and I'm sorry, maybe I should have said I typed an email to him, okay?
Well, this is that idea, but it is a very important distinction because you quoted several people, Cal, that you said you talked to. And so when you first were confronted, you said, no, I didn't say that. Well, are you now saying you did say that?
Art, I'm having trouble following bouncing ball here. Excuse me, but what is your exact point?
I think you said you had an IQ of around 200. It's not bouncing that high, Cal.
Art, if you ask anyone who knows me, I don't believe in IQ tests. Well, so if anyone wants to use that,
this is a very simple matter. Sending email is not talking to someone. That implies what you and I are doing right now, along with Jim. Having a discussion, either on the phone or allows direct interaction.
And Art, I will say this for what I hope is the last time, because I hope it's very clear. If I use the word talk, I am sorry. I'm telling you, I sent an email to him and UFO Updates, and in there I mentioned that people were sandbagging his database, and that is just wrong. And if you wanted to know what reports I was referring to, please contact me and I'll tell him. And as far as I know, he never did, but I can't prove he never contacted me. And even if he's never contacted me, so what? That's his business.
All right. That's where we're going to break here at the half hour. And when we come back, we'll try and settle this. We'll see if we have the audio immediately available. And then we'll move on from there, because there is a lot more material. There are allegations that CalCorp made against Jim Dilettoso that I have here on paper. So we'll come back with that in a moment as the debate continues. Reminding my audience, you can vote on the website with regard to who you believe, and CalCorp are locked in debate with us as well right now is Peter Davenport from the UFO Reporting Center. And we'll get back to all of them in a moment. And and settle this, are you 800-704-8844, of course. Risk is involved, and you can lose all or part of your initial investment. Only risk capital should be used. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. All right, back now to my guest, Cal Korff, Jim Delatoso, and with us now, Peter Davenport. And let us quickly try and set up. Peter, are you online?
I'm with you, Art.
All right. Do you have a recording?
I do. It's just about 15 seconds long. It should resolve.
Go ahead. Here we go.
Data that's over a year old. That's fair.
Do you recall how you came upon this video?
Yeah, what happened, and I posted, and I told Peter Davenport this, because this upset me, Art. There are some people out there that seem to enjoy.
Dead wrong. All right. I told Peter Davenport this.
Right, I didn't say I talked to him, I told him, and the internet is one way to talk. In fact, Art, I thank you for conducting a poll because it shows 70% according to the chart and 24% in favor of.
Well, listen, the poll, first of all, is not complete until the program is.
I understand that, Art.
Secondly, in fact, you did say that. You know,
Say what?
that you talked.
Where's the recording saying I talked? I thought I just heard the word told.
All right.
Cal Korff and Peter Davenport have never, ever had any direct communication, either over the telephone or by email. My record of email will show it very clearly. I don't even know how I can contact Cal. Peter, the very email that you just quoted has my return email on it. So that is not. No, I've never received an email from Cal Korff, is what I'm saying. Well, I can't. I've been looking for your email or your phone number for about a year to invite you to one of our monthly MoveOn meetings up here, Cal, and I could not find either one of them. Then why don't you look at the email you quoted from that has my return email and the header and footer information? It's right there. That's not available to me. It was only a second-hand quote of what Cal Korff had said about the National
Well, we
extra UFO update.
Gentlemen on the radio, we are not going to settle the question of UFO. There is no way we can do that. Peter, I thank you for the recording.
Thank you very much, Art.
All right, thank you. That's Peter Davenport now. You mentioned, I wasn't going to mention it, Cal, but you mentioned it. There was, between you and I, Cal, a very severe incident.
Yes.
You, in fact, wrote that I had been putting pressure on my radio affiliates to censor you, to keep you off the air. In fact, you went so far as to say that I had threatened to cancel my affiliation with, for example, KFYI and another station in the Northwest if you were allowed on the air. Is that correct?
Yes, Art, I think we've been over this.
Well, you brought it up, and I did.
Yeah, I understand that.
And the reason I now bring it up, and you were absolutely incorrect about that, weren't you?
Yes, Art, and I apologize to you. And once again, the information that I had been told was wrong.
Cal, you
apologize because I was wrong, and when I'm wrong, I admit I'm wrong.
Yes, you apologized after a long, very difficult ordeal with you in which I threatened to sue you. And I said, you are damaging me. And I threatened to sue you, and you continued for days to say, no, I've got the documentation. Do you remember that, Carol?
Yes, because the person that had told me this told me they were sending it, and I had received part of it. And when I looked at all of it, because you made me get on it, and that was the right thing to do, I finally got it, and it turns out that it was wrong. And the least I could do to apologize. All right,
all right, and this brings us to where we want to go. Who had written that?
Who had written what? I'm sorry.
Who had written the thing suggesting that Art Bell was going to pressure his affiliates on all the rest of it? Who is it? Is it Jim Delatoso? Is that who you meant?
No. It's, first off, nobody wrote anything that I recall. I was told verbally.
But on your website, you used a letter from my attorney to that radio station that won.
Yeah,
because claiming that there was some affiliation with Art Bell in the letter that was written, and there was no such thing.
I need to go back a little bit on this so we get something very clear. The information that had been verbally communicated to me.
By whom?
I don't have to identify who that is. It's a journalist. No, I don't, Jim, and certainly not to you.
By whom? Well, then to the 12 million people listening.
Jim, I am within my legal rights as an investigative journalist to protect that. Okay? Thank you. Now, if I can just finish, please. The information that was communicated to me verbally regarding Very Young Show, KFYI, okay? As you know,
And you claim 2 other radio stations for a total of 3.
That's true.
that's the information that had been communicated to me. I'm reiterating that, okay? I'm sorry, didn't hear that?
By whom?
Again, Jim, I've already answered that question as far as what I'm doing on that issue, so I'm not going to repeat it again.
Okay.
Okay, so, when Art, and rightly so, put my feet to the fire because the information was wrong, Art was perfectly justified in being upset. I was on the road doing the Lisa show. I ran down those issues, got the so-called documentation, and when I got it, it did not match what I had been told verbally. Now,
You
when I got
got to the facts and truth on those radio shows.
Jim, are you going to let me finish?
Sure.
Thank you. When I got that documentation, I was shocked and hurt to find out that, A, it wasn't true. And it's like, okay, I need to give Art an apology. And boy, talk about making a really bad blunder. I've never made a mistake like that before. And not only that, but here comes 2 letters. One from you and your attorney to KFYI saying, essentially, and it's on the web, that if KFYI lets me on the air, you would resort, it says more or less, to legal action. And then they replied,
Well, you they got authority to go to radio stations.
Jim,
They be concerned about that.
Jim, please don't interrupt me, okay?
Okay.
All right, so they write you back, and they essentially said that, roughly that, they were going to put me on anyway, and then they started asking you questions about did you or didn't you have a PhD or claim that you had one from McGill University, et cetera, et cetera.
I did.
And as I noted, Jim, please don't interrupt. And as I noted, as far as I know, and maybe you have, but as far as I know, you didn't respond and didn't even supply proof about the issue of, claiming you had a PhD from McGill when the truth is you didn't. We've been over that on other shows, but MSF finally admitted, only because I kept asking you, that that statement wasn't true. And it's nothing personal, Jim, but here's the issue. I've made mistakes, but I have never gone around and said I have a PhD when I don't. And if anybody says that, it doesn't matter who they are. It hurts the credibility of the field of ufology.
All right, in fact, your words, Cal, let me read you your own words. Again, from the same letter that you have told us you wrote. I care very much, you say, about the credibility of ufology. That's why, as an objective researcher, I call it as it is. Jim Delatoso is a voting fraud and con artist. Case closed. His photo analysis are not scientific, and now they have been disproven yet again for the umpteenth time for nearly 20 years now. People are finally waking up to this fact. I'm on to other things, and it goes on from there. But clearly, you called him a fraud and a con artist. Are those your words?
Art, those are my words. And if you, as you'll see in my book, which Jim has never disputed, and according to him, he's never even opened, there are quotes from him claiming he says he has a PhD from McGill University. There's also a letter from McGill University saying, Jim, don't interrupt me. Please don't interrupt me. Okay, there's a quote, or there is a letter from McGill University that is a figure in the book that says that Jim has never attended the university, was not awarded a doctorate. Jim then said he had an honorary doctorate. I then checked that, and it turns out that there's no evidence to support that, and that's what McGill says. And if you look at an illustration, you will see at the bottom that there is a computer file that's been opened, because I'm not the only one that has called that university running down that issue. And the Tony Ortega article cites several people where their opinion of Jim is similar to what I have expressed.
Cal, did you have input to that article through Tony Ortega?
The only thing that I did is, let's see, I'm trying to remember how it went.
Did you provoke?
I went ahead and
Provoke Earthly Monster to seek out local media?
excuse me, but can I finish? Well, we do want to allow some interaction here.
Well, yeah, but I want to get the point out, Art. I'm being interrupted, and when I talk, I can't hear him.
Okay, well, the point is every now and then pause and allow him to respond.
Okay. Ortega wanted to know if it was possible to interview Ken Dinwiddie to check my account where I sat down Ken Dinwiddie, the technician at the Amazon Systems, where some minor enhancements were done. I sat Dinwiddie down in his living room with the Meyer book, went through the photo analysis section. I said, comments on each of the captions are they true? Yes or no? I quoted Dinwiddie's statement that it was made up stuff essentially in the book. Ortega said, well, I want to verify that myself. I'm going to call Dinwiddie. And I said, I don't have his number. I haven't talked to him in a long time. I said, I don't even think he'll talk because he's always turned down such interviews. But to my thought, Jim Masters, the founder of that company, let me just involved with the company that I work with. Well, okay, let me finish my so much to my surprise, and I ended up getting a copy of it. It turns out that Dinwiddie did talk, and you have to ask Tony Ortega for the full stuff he said. What Ortega did is he listed verbatim quotes from my book and simply noted that Dinwiddie said that I quoted him accurately.
But listed verbatim from your book, which was a lie, because you never stated that De Anza did testing. It is clearly stated in a standalone caption that De Anza Systems provided the images that better illustrate our testing procedures. Jimmy never claimed in writing anywhere, as you have alleged, that De Anza did testing, and that is a lie that you have perpetrated for your own purposes upon the general public.
No, it's not, Jim. Ken didn't have that I got quotes right, and he would not have said that if I'm right, Jim.
Cal,
From.
it is clearly
Cal,
it is
Cal,
correct.
Cal, you got a pretty good run at it. Let him just respond.
Okay, sure.
It is clearly stated in the book. It is a standalone caption. Thanks are given to De Anza Systems for whatever it says. I don't have it in front of me. For their computer systems that better illustrate our test procedures. Nowhere in any documentation anywhere do we ever claim that De Anza Systems did testing. You alone extracted that quote, disguised it, and claimed that we did testing at De Anza. And you know that that is not true.
Okay,
In the subsequent books of the entire investigation procedure, all of the labs that did the testing were annotated, talked about, and qualified, and you knew that we never claimed that, and you found a Confederate, one lone Confederate.
Are you saying that Ken Dinwiddie is lying when he says that you made up the stuff and that the captions that you included in the book have nothing to do with the photos that were included? Are you saying that Ken Dinwiddie is lying, Jim?
Of course not. Well, I am saying that Dinwiddie was a worker. I am saying that Ken Dinwiddie was a worker at the facility where Chuck Masters, the founder, chairman of the company, and Wayne Hepler, the general manager, assigned and loaned us a quality, fine gentleman. The man you talked to. Yes, and who handled us for that afternoon. Okay, but the nuclear system, and you knew, Cal. Jim knew that.
Jim, why don't you address what's in the book if you haven't read it?
Jim, I'm talking about our book.
Jim, I want you to look at what Dinwiddie says.
Publishing, that it never says, nowhere in any of our, and I am second tier, third tier, in any of our contentions do we claim that De Anza did testing. Only you claim that, and you found one lone Confederate who would collaborate with your misuse of the English language. Who's the Confederate? Dinwiddie? He's the one that said that you made stuff up. We never made anything up. Well, I'm quoting him. I read an interview. He independently verified that my own was accurate, Jim. Your contention to him that we did testing there was correct. We made it up, but we never contended that. We contended that their computer system, one of many places that we went, many, better demonstrated our test procedures, and as you and many who have read the test publications know, that the answer was not one of the places where we did testing, but was one of the places where we auditioned a computer system which we later purchased. I was a VM owner. I was a video owner, each under particular arrangements. And after years of testing the Meyer case at various substantial laboratories, which you know in fact happened, you selected to isolate one particular place where you could find a Confederate who would collaborate with you for whatever the reason.
Who's this Confederate?
I would like to ask something here. Words do have consequences, and I'm addressing this to you, Cal. I mean, they really do. As you found out when you said them with reference to me, which was a mistake, which eventually you did apologize for. They have consequences. They hurt people. Now, you have said of Jim Dilettoso that he is a fraud. That's a very strong word. And you have said a con artist, and that's an extremely strong word. Now, it's my understanding that some of Jim's backers, as a result of these words, appearing in new times or words equivalent to that, have backed out. Is that true, Jim?
That is correct.
So you've lost funding.
Well, I can regain my credibility by being absolute direct with people in my immediate dialogue with them, but the day-to-day issues are that the New Times story was, in the immediacy after the event, very devastating.
To you, yes. Cal, in messages, you have clearly stated that you thought that Jim had, in essence, built people, I'll use that word, built people out of money. Is that accurate?
I'd have to have those messages in front of me.
Well, in an email that you sent out dated Friday, 6 March 98, 14:42, 46 Eastern Standard Time, you sent an email out which I would invite you to read. Do you have that in front of you, and could you read it? It's only 1,500 words.
No, I don't, Jim, because I am not I'm here on a phone to be on the show. I'm not at the place where I've got all my...
But you know what your words are. Yeah, you may.
A lot of email every day.
All right, you may read it. All right. And then, Cal, hold on a second. We can't obviously handle 1,500 words, but let's at least get to the relevant portion. What did he say?
Relevant according to who, Mark?
Relevant according to what he said.
With regard to what? If you're going to read one whatever and not the whole thing, isn't that selective choice of data? The bottom line is, Jim,
did you say it or not?
Jim made this up. I quoted him accurately or negatively, and that was in the article.
You proposed local, Erskine and Monster, to seek out local media, when none of the primary media, from the television to the primary newsprint, would take the story, and finally Tony Ortega at the New Times did, and did the story due to your provoking.
No, Jim, you need to ask
Richard that you extracted, Cal. We can prove this.
Jim, I need to ask.
But you have extracted and you claimed things different. I invite the reader.
What we can do here is, indeed, Jim, you can read the words and Cal can say, these are my words, or I deny those are my words. It's that easy.
Okay, but Art, he's telling me that I'm trying to convince, what do you say, Erskine and Moxer to go do whatever. Why don't you ask them?
They already agreed to that.
I'm sorry?
And by their subsequent cross-lateralization of evidence that they have presented, it is clear.
Jim, I don't know who that number is.
Because they have interviewed you on their radio shows.
I was on Erskine's radio show. I didn't think Richard had a radio show. Where's it at, Jim? What station?
Richard has no radio show.
Well, you just said their radio show, Erskine and Monster, right? I haven't talked to Richard Monster in months. Ask him. You want my phone bills? There's no numbers, calls to him, okay?
All right, gentlemen, we're at the top of the hour, so everybody cool off a little bit. We'll come back and settle this on the other side of the news. And we will, in fact, let Jim read those words, and either they are Calcoff's words or they are not. This is a line that we can follow. We can't talk to the gentleman you're talking about now, so we can't settle. Again, here I am. There's a debate going on between Cal K. Korff and Jim Dilettoso. It will continue in a moment. When you said, I want to remind my audience, we have an ongoing voting poll on my website with regard to how you think this debate is going. And I would remind the audience, you're welcome to vote either for the first time or once you have voted, you're able to go back if you change your mind during the course of the interview. Either way, and change your vote. You can't vote twice, but you can change your vote. They're on the web now at www.play.com. That's PLAY.com. All right, back now to our guest, Jim Dilettoso, and of course, Cal Korff. Gentlemen, you're both back on the air, and just before we proceed to have Jim read the actual words, I would like to bring, I said earlier that unfortunately Mr. Erskine and the other gentleman you mentioned were not available, so we couldn't test that. But now, guess what? Here is Jeff Erskine. Jeff, welcome to the program.
It's a pleasure to be there, Art. I'm calling right down the road from Jim.
All right. And
Neighbors.
do you
I
ask
don't go that far.
what do you have to contribute, Jeff?
Well, I'll tell you what, Art, I prefer to be called Erskine, but
Erskine, all right, Erskine.
thank you, sir.
The amazing Erskine.
Okay, I'll tell you what, Jim is a liar, pure and simple, because Cal Korff never once said, hey, shop this book around, take my book to other places. I didn't even have a copy of the book of Cal. I had a copy of it, and Richard Monster bought it, and I never got it back. That's the only copy I had. I did not take a book to anybody. Cal Korff never told me to take a book to anybody. I know Cal Korff. I like Cal Korff. I've had him on a number of times on my show, but I never was told one time by Mr. Korff to ever go take this to some local media and expose Jim Dilettoso. Never. That was never the project, and prove it, baby.
And didn't you brag to, at the time, Councilwoman Frances Farwood that you were going to get me and expose me, and you had things to demonstrate to people that would do that?
No, I had told her that you were a liar, and I may have done that, and I had things to prove that, and I'm proving it right now. You're a liar, don't you? Take to the topic, Jimbo. Take to the topic. You are lying through your teeth about me.
Well, collaborators will do that, and
Oh, Jim, you're a liar. You're lying.
All right. Now, how Erskine would you prove that he lied?
If you find out you don't prove the negative, you don't prove the negative.
Well, that's
Man is making accusations which are absolutely untrue. One way I can prove it, I didn't have a copy of Cal Korff. I kept calling him and calling the publisher asking for it. Am I going to go somewhere and say, hey, look what's written in the book I don't have, but I'd love to give it to you if I did.
but Erskine, didn't you go to the New Times with all of these allegations about me?
I did not originally go to the New Times with all these allegations about you.
Well, didn't you go there?
I did go to the New Times and talk to Tony, but did you see my name in the article anywhere?
Well, you originally went there, you didn't originally go there.
Pardon? The concept that you said was that Cal Korff had threatened for me and Monster to go to the local press. That, I'm telling you, is an absolute lie.
But don't you all talk regularly?
Like I mentioned before, I haven't spoken to Richard Monster via email, phone, or whatever for many, many months. The last time we spoke was over our collective opinions about the Phoenix case, and that was roughly late last year when the Discovery Channel was doing their thing. My footage ended up being on the edited floor, and then they mounted my rest of my footage to the Area 51 special, which I was actually very happy with.
Well, Tony Ortega told me things about what he had been presented with to investigate that could have only come from your group.
Well, we don't have a group, Jeff. We don't have a group.
Okay?
You have a group. We don't.
Why is it that my words are being gone over in minutia? How come nobody's asking questions about why somebody says they have a PhD and names the university, and it turns out that that's not true?
All right, let us, Kristen, I wanted to let you add that. I appreciate you coming.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bell.
All right. Now, so let's do it, Cal. Let's do it. Nobody, there's only two of you here right now. We had somebody, I think, who has come on and kind of came at you, and now we've had somebody who's come on and has come at Jim. So if you want to move into this question about academic credentials, let's rock and roll.
Okay, but I just want to make one thing clear, Art. It wouldn't matter if it was the Pope saying he had a PhD. If it is not true, it hurts the credibility of ufology. And my fear is that now that the media is awakened to the UFO issue, thank God, finally, the danger we are is that if we don't put our best foot forward, we're going to be laughed right out. There's going to be...
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more, but wait a minute. I'm sorry, Cal. Just before we do that, we'll get to academic credentials in a moment. I did want to give Jim the opportunity to read to you your own words. Jim, do you have them handy? Go ahead.
Paul, do you have that from Friday, 6 March?
No, because as I said before, I'm at a phone where I can be on this show.
Okay, well, we all understand that. So go ahead and read them, Jim, and then Cal can say, look, those are my words or they're not my words.
So forgive me for reading Alcor's words, but
Go ahead and read. Yeah, go ahead.
subject, Jindal Oso finally exposed for good, question mark.
Yeah, like you said.
Please, Cal.
It is with a feeling of mixed emotions that I must announce to you that this week's issue of the Phoenix New Times has an extremely devastating expose of Jindal Oso analyst and image computer expert. While Billy Meyer and his unobjective religious and fanatical believers, which is Jim Deardorff, Michael Hesman and Bill Jerome in the Netherlands will undoubtedly find ways to rationalize the heartbreaking revelations in this devastating expose. The burden of proof is on them to disprove these two allegations. The truth is, the investigative reporter for the New Times decided to independently research Delaposo and Meyer and found, to his surprise, that Delaposo is 100% guilty of doing everything from lying about having various degrees from assorted universities to outright swindling millionaire Jordy Hormel to the tune of several $1 million. The report also proves, according to recent court records he cites, that Jindal Oso has been running a scam all along over these years.
All right, you can hold it there. You've already covered. Let us begin by asking you, to be fair, Cal, are those your words?
I think you know they are my words, Art.
Okay, good.
I doubt Jim would fake something like that.
Okay, swindling. Swindling is pretty strong, severe allegation.
Oh, but Ortega's adjective for it. I don't recall the exact words. That's an article in front of me. But what did Ortega say?
Just settle for what you said. Now, swindle. In what way did he swindle?
Is that stated in the article?
I don't have it handy, but you might want to check it. I think he mentioned TRW denying your claim. Hormel's wife is the one that...
No, Cal. Swindling.
Swindling, let's start with that. It's a very strong allegation. It's fair to ask, in what way did he swindle?
If I had the New Times article in front of me, I would quote it.
You must have studied it.
I had it at the time in front of me, Jim. I don't now because I don't have any of that paperwork, but I did at the time I wrote it. Why don't you read for the viewer, for our listeners, what by Tony Ortega.
Well, I
Jordy Hormel might talk about you.
I spoke to Susan Duggar of the Men's Society about their tracking down people with 200 IQs.
I've never joined Mensa. I don't believe in that group. I've never joined Mensa.
People that have all of that, and they have no record of you. But in any case, she explained to me the attributes of people with a 200 IQ, which is a photographic memory. In any case, I spoke with my longtime friend and collaborator and sometimes argumentative partner, Jordy Hormel, about these conditions that his wife had stated allegedly for the New Times.
3 days later,
He retracted and said that what he believed we were doing was legit, that there was no claim of lies or swindle, as you have alleged in the story.
now Jim,
$2 million in collateral. There was no investment. There was no investment of $2 million in Jordy Hormel's part.
well then why
As
don't you?
the Dun & Bradstreet report that anyone who subscribes to that service can find,
Why don't you?
I put up $2 million in collateral and borrowed with my assets at risk money to finance the state-of-the-art leading-edge system that we have by many noted sources developed.
Hey Jim,
Why? And you said,
whatever Jim. Why don't you go ahead?
you said that Tony Ortega's story alleged that I had swindled people out of millions of dollars, including Jordy Hormel, and you knew that, and you wrote it.
Jim, why don't you?
Stand by my story that came out days later. Let me continue here. To outright swindling Jordy Hormel to the tune of several $1 million, the report also proves, according to recent court records, no such thing in the story or exists in fact or in truth, Mr. Clark. Jim Militoso and Phyllis Labs have been running a scam all these years. There are no court records to any such thing, and you know it, and it is not in the story.
If there are such court records, Cal, by all means, quote them there.
Art, do you think that I have court records here when I don't even have copies of my emails? Why doesn't Jim?
I mean, these are extremely serious allegations. These are,
Why doesn't Jim read what Ortega wrote about it, and why doesn't he prove?
hold it, you can't, hold it, both of you. I can't hear both of you at once.
And can I finish my quote?
Yes, Cal,
Thank you, sir.
finish.
Okay, why doesn't Jim or you quote what Ortega said, so we all know, because I don't have the article here. And let me finish. And why doesn't Jim produce a tape recording of Jordy Hormel? If information came out after the Ortega, can I finish, please? Wait, can I finish, please? Thank you. Please. If new information came out, because I don't know if Jordy Hormel did what Jim said or if Jim's telling the truth, I don't know, but if it came out after that article, then the point is still valid because it can only be valid up to the date of the written statement. Why don't you quote what Ortega wrote? It's his story. I just basically paraphrased it. And I am telling you the truth when I say that it does hurt that this type of story is written no matter who it's about.
Did you not contribute to the adjectives that allowed the story to be written? And are you not in believing with Mr. Kiviat right now that this radio show that we are doing proves that there is a controversy, that Mr. Kiviat can sell a television show to Fox based on yours and my controversy?
Jim, you need to talk about Kiviat. I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay.
It's no secret. No, Jim, seriously. In fact, I will have Bob call you tomorrow and then we'll have a call part, okay? Because the truth is not a fact.
Pardon? Is it not a fact that Bob Kiviat already pitched on your behalf
you. How will you have manufactured Jim from your side?
Yeah, Jim, and I'm sorry that you're so desperate that you say that. In fact, I will go talk to him tomorrow, and I'm sure he'll call you. He has your number. I'll make sure he calls you.
Sorry, I thought the words con and swindler were very serious words with serious consequences. And I thought that if you did right thing what you did, Cal, that you would be able to tell me in what way Jim swindled.
Okay, Art, if you'll have Doc Hilford on your show, he'll give you the inside story on it.
Boss is here in the building, Mr. Larry Giametti. Who was Dr. boss.
Art,
Call the Wildfire line, area 702-727-1295. Hold it. That I can't air.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That I'm not going to air.
okay, Art, Doc Hilford was with Jim Delatoso years ago. His quote is something to this effect.
It's a lie.
Well, fine, Jim, but he says you're a con artist, and the tape is out there. And you got the tape. I didn't record the tape. I never knew who Hilford was. I heard a copy of the tape when he was on, I think it was Erskine show, if I remember, in Phoenix, his radio show.
He's being on the air.
What?
And our records demonstrate.
What are you talking about?
So what are you talking about, Jim?
I'm talking about what Mr. Brown and Mr. Erskine are claiming is a source of authority.
I don't know what you're...
He is not a source of authority because his boss is present here in the building right now.
Jim, I'm simply telling Art because he may not know, and the listeners may not know, that Doc Hilford has already done a radio show where he says that about you. And
Well, Doc Hilford is
Other people may have said something, a newspaper may have said something. I don't know what these people said. I just know, Cal, that you said it. And so I was asking you to provide proof that he swindled. That's such a strong thing to lay on somebody.
Art, if you look at Ortega's article, whatever the quote was, I think he says basically the same thing. Doc Hilford had said that, and he has the show as well.
They're not here right now. You are, Cal, and you did say it. Now, please, if you call somebody a swindler and or a con artist, you should be able to back it up. Not with what other people have said, but on your own steam.
So you're saying eyewitness testimony is not to be relied in this case? Why don't you...
I don't have an eyewitness here now, Cal. I have you.
Yes, but I'm not Doc Hilford, okay?
But Doc Hilford was not in Tony Ortega's story.
No, but he's been on the air talking about you being a con artist, Jim. And you know that.
Opinion.
Hey, I'm just quoting the witness, just like when I interview people who were there when I was on the photo email.
I'm sorry you did that for records.
Sorry, gentlemen, I'll have to see you a lot of the hour, and we will continue for another 30 minutes, and then we'll have open lines. So the debate continues between Cal K. Korff and Jim Delatoso. I'm Art Bell, and this is Coast to Coast AM. Once again, here I am. Good morning. The debate continues between Cal K. Korff and Jim Delatoso. Now back to my guests and the debate, and I want to give Cal Korff a chance here. Cal, you used two words. One was swindler, and we sort of dealt with that. I would like to move on to the other con artists. Now, in that category, I suppose you might certainly suggest if somebody misrepresents their educational credentials, that it is a con, by the very definition of con. So what do you know about Jim Delatoso's alleged misrepresentation of educational background?
Well, I don't think it's alleged anymore because I think Jim will admit, hopefully tonight, for the first time in front of a large audience, that
he had claimed on Don Ecker's radio show, the old UFOs Tonight that used to be on, and I cite this in my book. The interview is in there. You can ask Don Ecker. I don't think Jim will dispute it. We were both on that show years ago.
Okay.
Right around my birthday again years ago. It seems to keep happening. Just an irony. That he said he had a PhD from McGill University. Well, I checked it, and according to McGill, and their facts is in my book, they said that isn't true.
Well, let's just let me interrupt you long enough, Cal, to ask, did you, in fact, Jim, state you had a PhD from McGill?
On a few occasions, indeed, I have.
You have. All right, continue now.
Okay, so then I confronted Mr. Delatoso with that information, and in fact, Don Ecker, McGill University's response, and I was shocked that they responded so fast because I remember in the old days you had to send typewritten notices through the letter, and thank God to modern technology you can research things quickly. And then Jim said something like it was a mistake. I can read the quote from the book, and he meant to say an honorary PhD. So I thought, okay. So I went back and asked them about that, and they said that they did not issue such a degree to Jim, and in this biomedical or whatever field he claimed it was, you'd have to ask Jim. He said he's done it a few times. Why won't you explain now when he has misrepresented himself that way and why he did it?
All right, one thing at a time. Did you misrepresent that, Jim?
Well, we go to the Don Ecker show first.
It's a yes or no question with all due respect.
You know, I think Cal's right. It is a yes or no question. And if that's where it's going to end up, you might as well give it a yes or no right now. Did you misrepresent your educational background?
Yes.
You did. All right.
Absolutely.
All right.
Second question would be why?
Well, let's go to the Don Ecker show first.
Okay, can we make sure he answers the question?
Well, we got a straight answer to the first one. Let's move on now to the second one.
When
The Don Ecker show. Go ahead.
when Don Ecker called me and invited me to be on the show, I agreed and came on the show. And the first part of the show where he asked me about my educational background, I said I have a high school diploma. I have over 180 credits in various colleges, and I have no degree. And I've taught at universities and blah, blah, blah. The first caller in was Cal Korth, who slammed me with this McGill thing. And to excuse the situation and try to cover my tracks, I deliberately said, yeah, it's an honorary degree. Well,
Okay, well, that was an untruth.
well, in that case, it was the best I could do for the circumstances.
You mean the best untruth you could come up with.
Yeah.
Unless you might as well just let it go.
Yeah, it's the best untruth. But let me go back to the very beginning of that. I have never, in my activities as Village Lab, computer graphics lab, or as a teacher for 5 years at Arizona State University, stated that I have a PhD. There is only one single set of circumstances where that happened, and it is in my infiltration of laboratories with Wendell Stevens starting in the late 70s.
And on a radio show.
Well, in that one radio show, yes, where to
All right.
succinctly set it aside, I reacted to it as best I could. But,
All right. Look, instead of belaboring this, you have admitted you misrepresented that. Cal, as you made a mistake and admitted it, Jim's now saying the same thing, that he misrepresented, made a mistake, and has now corrected it. Do you accept that?
Yes, in fact, I want to commend Jim for telling the truth regarding the issue because I think it's been a long time coming. My book
I've said it many times before.
Let me finish, Jim. My book does cite 3 instances in which he did it, by the way.
all circumstances connected to you.
No, because you had a conversation that is quoted in my book verbatim. I'll be happy to read it to you.
With your collaborator, Glenn Hoyle.
interrupt me, please?
Yeah, let him go. Let him go, Jim.
Okay. In my book, I cite both your misrepresentation on Ecker's show. I also cite another interview you did with Underground Video, where that's when you first, to my knowledge, named the university.
No, it was about the fourth or fifth.
Okay, so now we're talking 4 or 5 times that you named McGill, when the truth is you hadn't received a degree from there, honorary or otherwise.
It was a very complex situation, and I had no instruction from first tier on how to deal with that if it would come up.
Jim, I must confess that if that happened to me, I would never even make the claim in the first place, let alone be stumped on how to talk my way out of it several times.
Yeah, well,
something or
circumstance of the progression of my business, the progression of all the aspects of my life. I have never stated that.
Well, Jim, it's also in print at the UFO West Expo, where they were promoting a lecture of yours that you did several years ago.
I apologize for that, but I did not write that.
Okay, but but who told them that information? Because again, I've been as guest at that symposium, and the people have to supply their own bio for the promoter to write it up. So that's now another instance where that happened, Jim.
Yeah, well, it happened before. Back in the late 70s, when I was part of the Moody Blues Brothers, I was Captain Toso, I was Dr. Delatoso, and I apologize for that. But
But
there
Jim,
was no progress in my career.
with all due respect, that doesn't address the question that you wanted, and you did it in another interview with Underground Video. How many times have you misrepresented yourself that way, and why do you do it? And then you wonder why people say you're a con artist? Tell me the logic here so I can be enlightened, because
It was a difficult time. I mean, when we had to, in the late 70s, go into the facilities and sustain ourselves there for quite some time, and I was introduced as Dr. Delatoso, I would, or Dr. James Toso, or Dr. James Toast, I would participate.
but yeah, okay? And another one will say March 12th.
No, I was surprised by that when at an SPIE, Society of Photo-Optical Instrumentation Engineers, we ran into people. When I ran into people we had seen at JPL in the hotel lounge, and they introduced me as Dr. Delatoso, and it was, oh darn.
Okay, but Jim, on March 12th, 1994, the day before my birthday again, you said it again on Don Ecker's show.
Well, I didn't say it. I honestly stated my position on Elder, and then you showed up as the first caller and trapped me.
No, I'll read you the quote.
Yeah.
Question from court. Let me ask you, Jim. You went on record recently as saying you have a PhD from McGill University. Is that correct? Delatoso's answer. Yes. I went on record saying that.
Yes. After I had earlier said that I had a high school diploma and 180 college credits.
Jim, so what? That's irrelevant. The point is you were wrong.
The first question from the host,
Jim, can I finish, please?
the first question from the host when he asked me,
Cal, in response to your call on that program, he has it now admitted that he misrepresented.
Okay, but I still don't know why he did it. He explained it.
Fine. Let us.
okay, it's a complex set of affairs. In the late 70s,
But why? All right, I understand Cal's question, Jim. Let me put it to you.
yes.
Why did you do it on that program?
Well, when he first asked me that question and it came out of the blue, I need to dismiss it immediately.
So,
I came up with the best answer I could. I had no training from my first year.
okay, Cal, that's your answer. In other words, in response to your question, he uttered a misrepresentation because it was the best misrepresentation he could think of.
Yeah, I invite people listening to the show and argue at 12 million viewers.
No, they stare sometimes at the speaker, but they're mostly
5
listeners.
million.
No, they're listeners.
Sent to your website their remembrance of my contact with them as Dr. Delatoso.
Okay, but then why did you misrepresent it to Underground Video and yet another interview, Jim? What's your explanation for that? You keep
My
doing it.
client of Underground Video, or Nathan Daniel, whichever is his real name, was your collaborator, and he lied to me and said that this videotape was being prepared
specifically for Nobel Prize winners, formerly of Jet Propulsion Laboratory, which was the first place where this entire incident of Dr. Delacoso came up.
So you felt you had to misrepresent yourself?
It was complex. I mean, I had to stop and think about it a lot. And I had the video from Glenn, which he, at that time, I don't know if he knew you or not, courteously sent me an offline record of it so that I could study it. And there was babies crying in the background, and people sitting over there who recalled me from JPL, and it was complex, and I did the best I could at the time. But I have in no circumstance ever awarded myself in advance in my career, whether it's Phillips Lab, Computer Graphics Lab, or any of the others, by being Dr. Delacoso. It was only in circumstances where we had to penetrate facilities, and I terminated it.
So
Immediately thereafter, as those facilities in one circumstance flew out of control.
No, I think it is, for the purposes of this discussion, sufficient that he admits that he misrepresented General.
okay,
What do you think?
Yeah, I've been other names. I mean, I admit I've been Captain James Delacoso, James Toast, I've been to universities for other people. It's complex. And at that time, 20 years ago, I'm only 49, this coming Friday, I was younger than you are, Cal, and I did the best that I could for the circumstances that I was in, and I apologize. I have not advanced my career based on a global view. Well, Jim, Dr. Delacoso, let us not belabor that point, because you know it is not you that the majority of people have of me.
All right, I have something I want to say about your asking about, I guess. We're into this nearly 3 hours deep now. I'm sure everybody's getting tired, but look, the UFO community faces, the ufologists face a really uphill push trying to get to the truth and to get their information out. And I think you would both agree that ripping each other's necks open, and the UFO community is doing this generally. We've just had a sample of it tonight.
Yeah.
But this is going on generally all over the UFO community.
Yeah.
Is a horrible thing to be doing, and is doing a terrible disservice to the entire subject. On the other hand, so are untruths.
Yeah.
absolutely are.
And claim the big piece, which is, if I could be candid for a moment, how and why I dismissed Cal Court some time back, and have not paid attention to him or purchased his book or even talked to him. My intention is, when you listen to Cal, that you really don't know anything about any processing. Is that not true?
I think you're correct when you say that's not true. I do know stuff about him in processing.
I have an unusual circumstance. When I study all the people that are contentious about me, whether it's Dr. Scallon, who has not yet seen my papers, he reviewed a videotape brought to him by Erston and Monser. And perhaps Cornett and MacD will review it for the Bell Show. But when I hear videotapes where you talk about the milestones in image processing, and they are so far off that I can't even regard you as even near the camp of a collaborator.
Well, Jim, with all due respect, I don't care what you think of me, and I just cannot, I'm not the one who's being taken to task by the media for claiming they can get spectral data off of,
I do not want to dignify
Jim, you interrupted me, okay?
currently
Jim,
right now when
Jim, you interrupted me.
videotapes
Jim,
where you state things that are fundamentals in image processing.
Hey, Jim, you interrupted me.
Those are all.
All right, Jim, let him respond.
Okay, Jim, I'm not the one under media scrutiny for claiming that I can get spectral data off of video like you have with your RGB analysis of the Phoenix lights.
Well,
I'm not, Jim, let me finish, please, okay?
Yes.
I'm also not the one who endorses photographs that later on are admitted to be fake by the people who took them. In other words, no, Jim, let me finish, please, Jim.
Okay, that's an interesting point. Cal, you said photographs that later are shown to be fraudulent. What specific photographs?
The Puerto Rico photos were
Not correct.
oh really?
Wilson Sousa in Puerto Rico, a MUFON investigator with Antonio Huneeus, claims that they found a collaborator to Amory Rivera, the principal, the cousin, who, under threat of being arrested for certain things, admitted that they were present. But there was no direct principle, as you have claimed, proof that those pictures were fraudulent.
Well, Jim,
In the same case as the Oliver's Castle crop circle made by Balls of White video, either one of those have directly proved out from the principles. They are like these other contentions that you make where you just throw them out there,
no, Jim,
amplify them per your own intention.
no, let me read to you a report you wrote, okay?
Yeah.
First off, what year did you quit working for NASA?
In the late 80s.
Okay, well, this report is dated October 19th, 1991, written by you on NASA letterhead. It is not a NASA document, yet you use NASA, let me finish, please.
Okay,
Yet you use NASA letterhead
I did.
to write a report.
I did indeed.
You
Why
did.
did you do that? It's a fake memo, Jim. Why did you do it?
Because I was asked by a person who had misplaced the original for me to rewrite the document, and in the first two sentences, as you may know if you read it.
I'll read it to you. You want me to quote them?
Go ahead.
In late July 1991, we were shown 4 8x10 color photos, 4 35mm negatives, 4 35mm color slides of a UFO and a jet aircraft.
You skipped the first two sentences.
Yeah, but
Jim, you told me to read them.
Jim, that dates it as a 91
Yes, it is not.
document, a 1991 document.
It's not the only one. There's another one you did, Jim.
That would be Jim. That would be fraudulent.
Yeah, and here's another one dated August 10th, 1991. Why did you fake 2 of them, Jim? Here's a third one, okay? I'll send these to Art. I'll post them on the web. They're right
Yeah,
here.
that's fine. I had a dilemma at the moment when I was approached by the person who had originally asked me to test the pictures, had lost the original documents and asked me to rewrite them.
So you faked 3 separate reports over several months on NASA
I
letterhead?
restated my position from the earlier letters, and in fact, the first sentence, I say this is not an official project. We did this in our own time. Doesn't it say that?
No, it doesn't. In fact, you need me to send you copies of the stuff you faked to jog your memory. I'll be happy to send them to Art Bell. And then you got some questions.
Okay, well, there you go.
Listen, you two, we're near the top of the hour. I can hold you both over if you want to be helped. If you don't feel like you're done.
I don't mind being helped.
Cal?
I'll be happy to stay on.
Cal, do you have a fax machine?
Not here. I'm at this phone.
Okay.
I can try to. Well, it depends on who's in the building.
No, I understand. It's late. It's early.
Do you need me to send you something?
Well, I was going to suggest you fax those to me. I could quickly scan them and get them up, but it sounds as though you don't need to because it sounds like Jim is admitting.
Well, I'd rather have them up.
All right. I don't know how we can work on that unless, Jim, do you have them?
I do not.
You do not. Cal, you have them but can't send them, right?
Right.
So there's nothing I can do. We'll get them up tomorrow. Cal can fax them to me. I'll scan them. We'll get them up on the website. Agreed by both of you?
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, all right. Both of you hold on. Back down to my guests, Cal K. Korth and Jim Delatoso. Gentlemen, I announced observation to make, which you can agree or disagree with respectively, and then we'll move on. Cal, I think sometimes you tend to say words as though they were your own when you have heard it from somebody else. In the case of the run-in you and I had, that was true, and perhaps in some things that you said about Jim Delatoso, that's true as well. And I think that is perhaps an error on your part. And when you take care to be sure that what you say you know to be true personally, then you don't make mistakes. So that's what I would say to you, Cal. To Jim, I would say you're losing the debate, Jim, and you're losing it because Cal has indeed, it seems to me, proven that he did lie to men about and worse yet, appears to have in the documents that were false. If you admitted that the date 1991 was used, but obviously we're not quite past that at that time. So you beat each other up pretty well, I would say. Gentlemen, either one of you have comments?
Yeah, I do, Art.
One at a time, go ahead.
Sure. Art, I realize that sometimes I'm very blunt, probably not to the best of mythology, but, you know, I care very much about mythology, and, you know, let's say that Jim really does know about photo analysis. I think for the good of the field, that the next time he gets a UFO video, regardless of who takes it, to keep the UFO field from being tarred and feathered with a track record of fake documents, phony PhD credentials. Those analysis should be done by somebody who is above reproach. And don't even give them to me, because we don't want the modern guy saying, oh, that's just how it works. And, you know, you asked me earlier, my phone on Earth. You told me I should use Cal. I think you proved it. Okay, you proved it. And what I said to you, Cal, deserves a response. In other words, when they're your words, whether you're uttering them about me or Delatoso or whoever, if they're your words, Cal, then you should know it to be personally true before you say it. I agree with you, and in the incident with you and I was wrong, and my source was wrong. Now, bottom line is, I'm responsible, because if the source is incorrect, and that's how you and I was wrong, and my source was wrong. Now, bottom line is, I'm responsible, because if the source is incorrect, and I pass on that information before I've done the due diligence, then that is wrong.
That's how you make mistakes.
Exactly. And if you look at my track record, by what Jim may tell you, you know, go ahead and disprove my analysis in the book. If he's got the expertise in the background, then disprove the analysis in the book. If he doesn't even look at it, whether he says it's beneath him or whatever, I mean, that's it.
All right,
It's not going to resolve the issue.
all right, Cal, with respect to the documents that you talked about, I would suggest that if you don't recall my webmaster's address, do you recall it?
I have it on the paper here.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So see, you did that. All right, so I would suggest that you fax those directly to my webmaster. If you do that, I would also suggest, or email, and I would suggest that you fax them to me as well as a backup, and we will get them up. Now, in the case of Jim, you've been beat up pretty well here, and it seems justifiable to me. What have you to say about these documents?
Well, I should apologize, but with a soft shoe. When Wendell Stevens came to me and asked me to replace the document from 3 years earlier, I was very hesitant. In fact, I deliberated about it for some time.
Reaching apparently the wrong decision.
Well, if I reached the wrong decision, I apologize for that, but I stated in the first 2 sentences of that letter from my former employer that this judgment, whether it was a judgment of that day or 3 years earlier, the judgment was still the same. That we had tested these images at that facility on our own time without restriction or without endorsement.
that they're in.
Yeah, but you used that letter. You used the letter.
I mean,
Yeah.
No.
Art, it says here by Jim Delatoso, director of the computer graphics lab, and that's years after he no longer worked there.
3 years.
Okay, so you did it, Jim. 3 years.
Done testing.
3 years.
Done testing during my tenure.
Well, that's not what this says, Jim.
I had done the testing during my tenure, so
That's not what these say. Anybody who doesn't know your, pardon the phrase, excuse for doing this, that it would say, hey, it's by Jim Delatoso, director of computer graphics lab, NASA Industrial Applications Center.
yes.
They would assume because you put Windows name on here too, that gee, that former Air Force colonel's involved in this, and Jim Delatoso, who's director of the computer graphics lab, years after he left.
I think that was a mistake. I would take issue with it being a con,
Well,
or
what
being
is
a sole issue that,
Well, we're arguing over words that we ought not be arguing over. It's a terrible misrepresentation of.
yes, sir, I will admit to that. But
okay, and Art, you know, I gotta
found probably the sum total of my actions that were apologetic.
Okay, Art,
Yes.
I hate to sound like a broken record, but this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's another one, March 11th, where Jim says he was on Fox TV. They claimed he was a special effects designer who worked on the film Titanic.
Yeah.
Well, it says here, did you say that, Jim? Channel
I
10?
did, and I stand by that. I stand by the fact that for about a year, we had meetings here at our facility involving dozens of people beyond me,
Okay,
where we were designing, and it was our design used to prototype the system, which was then used by Digital Domain. And Mr. Hoffman at Digital Domain and I last week had some contention about did we build the piano or did we play the piano? But I still stand by the fact that we alone designed and PRW built, and it was prototyped to test the effects of that was then taken over by Digital Equipment Corporation and their systems integrator Carrera to design and build and install at Digital Domain the system used for the effects. Now, in my isolation of the shred of explanation of that, I still stand by the fact that we were critical, that we were central to the development of that system that was used by Digital Domain, as installed by Carrera, as assigned by DEC, as brought in by us, as built on our designs by PRW. And I don't want to argue about that right now.
okay, wait, Jim, I'm not gonna, no, I'm sorry. Here's a quote from the reporter you talked to, and I'll send this to you as well, Art.
No, go ahead.
It says here that Channel 10 failed to make a single call to Digital Domain. It says if it had, it would have learned that Delatoso had nothing to do with the film. Hayden, the reporter, admits that he took Delatoso's word for his Titanic work and a lot more. And then he says, quote, you know, we never put anything on the air and said, hey, this is a fact. And I have here a list of everybody who worked on it and the effects. There is no mention of Village Labs or Jim Delatoso.
We never worked on the effects. We worked on the prototyping of
But
the
Jim, you were quoted, it shows you in that piece that's saying that it says Jim Delatoso's UFO buff and special effects designer who worked on the smash film Titanic.
Yeah.
And the point is I'm going to send this to Art. You can research it yourself, and all I'm pointing out is what these people are telling me. And the thing I'm getting disgusted over time is every time somebody comes out and says, Jim, you're not telling the truth, and that line's getting pretty long, I get the blame from you and Meyer Nuts to say that, oh, Cal's behind it. But you know something? I'm trying to focus my efforts on government UFO document retrieval to get our government to honor their constitution that this country is founded on. If they're saying UFOs are not a national security threat or an issue, we have a right to those documents. And that's where I want to focus. If this debate was not on such an important show as Art Bell, I would have said no, because Jim, until you address my book, disprove what I say, whatever, address the issue, I really don't want anything to do with you because I'm busy trying to focus on research that hopefully will get us somewhere. I don't enjoy getting all this paperwork saying, oh, you did this time. I don't care. But, you know, I get labeled as a bunker because my publisher happened to be Prometheus. Never mind the fact that I asked them to publish the book. They didn't ask me.
Well, you do understand, though, Cal, why you get so labeled because of the repetition of publishing.
Yes, but you know something? For those publishers that publish UFO books that are total bogus, there's not the same standard there, Art. The fact is, I am not a debunker. I am not a skeptic. I am a UFO researcher, pure and simple. Not every case comes up as a real UFO, and we have to
That's true. Of course, that is true.
Okay, now, do you remember one of your staff named Franco?
What?
Franco?
Who?
Well,
Who? Are you making up another name now? Who are you talking about?
What is rather than trying to come up with a last name, we don't need to. What point are you trying to make, Jim?
well, a gentleman named Franco called me from, he said, Cal's house one day. And he was from, was near Liechtenstein, and been engaged by Cal to translate the German into English. And Franco talked to me for quite some time, claiming that he had been in the midst of Cal's investigation of a number of my affairs. And I just wondered if that was legit or if it was something that was off the wall or some
All right, well, this is your opportunity to ask.
Absolutely, Art, and you can probably get the tapes of this on Fox TV. When I debated Jim Delasoso on Fox TV years ago, he asked me before the filming if I knew somebody named Franco. Well, I don't know anybody named Franco, and the only person I know of that comes to my mind that's even famous that's Franco is Franco Colombo, Arnold Schwarzenegger's bodybuilding partner. That's it. And then when I said, I don't know who you're talking about, he dropped the issue. So this is a sign of desperation, if I may say so. I'm only speculating, I have to admit that. I don't know a Franco, and I had 4 years in German. I'll give you an example. Warum fragen Sie mir das? Das fragt ihr Deutsch.
I hope that was a clean example.
It was. I asked him, why are you asking me whether I speak German? Okay, because Mr. Edwards, my German teacher, is acknowledged in the credits of my book. Thank God he taught me German because it allowed me to communicate in Switzerland when I was over there undercover documenting the Meyer cult. And Jim, unless you go over there and do the science that a real scientist does, you can't analyze photographs of terrain if you've never been to the terrain in question. It's not possible, Jim, let alone when you don't have negatives. And you've never been to Mars like
team that I was involved with.
Jim, you can't trust what they're saying. It's hearsay.
No.
And as my book proves, should you dare to read it one day, I show you the photos of the real locations. They are mislabeled, Jim, and you can only know that by going there. So when Lee Evers told you X and it was really Y, you didn't know because you weren't there to double check it. That is inexcusable.
Well, let me state something that I have to say that these situations on the NASA letterhead, my PhD, which rise to the cream of the top of my problems in credibility, are the result of my participation in a team where my entry into the facility was created. But nonetheless, my scientific procedures and the things that happen in the back room are clear and accurate, and I would like to propose that we would play a tape wherein Mr. Core is stating to a reporter the issues concerning image processing, which is the basis of all of this. Mr. Corp is claiming that he has an expertise in image processing and the issues involved in the analysis of photographs. And this particular tape, which I studied a few years back, made me just dismiss Mr. Corp as an expert.
All right, well, I heard Mr. Corp not say he was an expert in image processing, but that he knew something about it.
Yeah, in fact, Art, you're right, because I am only qualified to render the opinions I have rendered. I don't like the term expert at all, to be honest with you. And as far as I know, I've never set up an expert in anything.
All right,
And
listen.
not only that, the day that Jim Delatoso tells me what is ethical, what is credible in the area of computer processing, is the day that the Pope becomes Jewish.
All right, and on that note, gentlemen, I think I'm going to end it here. I would like to ask you, Cal, do you feel you've been treated fairly?
Yes, I do, Art, and you have done your audience and the American people a tremendous favor, because regardless of who's telling the truth, Art, you asked the hard questions and you asked a lot of both of us, and I'm glad that Jim did hang in there, because
Okay, Cal, we're way out of time. James, thank you. Jim, do you feel you've been treated fairly?
I do.
All right, that's it then. We'll let the audience decide. Thank you both and good night. All right, that's it. We'll end it there. Now again, here's our... Once again, here I am. Rough night at salt mines, huh? As you probably know, you are not listening to a mechanically inclined person. Actually, you're listening to a mechanical dunce. However, even I was able to install the Jacobs Ultra Team ignition system into my Geo Metro. My little 3-cylinder, running hard with a squirrel Geo Metro. The installation took about an hour. And the results are as follows. Here now is a car that could only go up the hill between here and Las Vegas in third gear. Now it goes up in fourth gear. That's the truth. Also the truth, it starts right away, it's smoother running, and to top it all off, with more power, I've got more gas mileage. Talk about having your cake and eating it too. It was about 55 miles per gallon. Now it's 63, actually over, a bit over, on average. It's patented technology which optimizes the spark in each cylinder, guarantees a significant increase in power, as I just told you, and it works on old cars and new cars. And look, what you do is call Ultra Team, tell them what kind of car you got, and they will tell you, actually even better than that, they'll guarantee you what Ultra Team will do for your car. And if it doesn't do it, you've got a 30-day money-back, unlimited mileage guarantee. Less a small 10% restock fee. So call, say, hey, I've got a so-and-so. What can you do? 7 days a week, 8 in the morning to 9 at night central. The number is 1-800-627-8800. That's 1-800-627-8800. And by the way, they're on the web at www.jacobselectronics.com. Are you overweight? Would you like to lose an average 8 to 10 pounds in the next month? We know that fiber helps sweep fat out of the digestive tract like a broom, reducing the amount of fat your body stores as excess weight. Well, let me tell you about a revolutionary fiber. Chitosan is a natural fiber that comes from shellfish. It not only sweeps fat, but also absorbs up to 10 times more fat than other fibers. You can get this fiber in a formula called Chitoslim. Chitoslim is effective because you can lose weight without changing your eating habits. And there are no stimulants. It's a general effective way to lose excess weight. Here's a special offer. When you order a 90-day supply of Chitoslim, you'll get an antioxidant moisturizing cream absolutely free. Call 1-800-557-4627. It's guaranteed to work for your money back, and it's not available in stores. So call 1-800-557-4627. That's 1-800-557-4627. You've got nothing to lose but the fat. All right. Now that the debate is complete, I can give you the figures from the website, and I will indeed do that. During the course of the debate, a total of, at this moment anyway, 2,141 people voted. The categories were Delatoso winning, Delatoso leading, even, court leading, and court winning. And the way it came out is only 6% of the people at this moment thought that Jim De La Tosa won. Only 1% thought he was leading. 7% thought it was even. 7% thought court was leading. And a whopping 78% thought that court won the debate, for a debate consensus of 85%, which is staggering. So that people don't have to do the arithmetic. It's $28.95, and that includes shipping and handling. So that'll make it easier. Now, this is just an offering to some of you who want the book right away and want an autographed copy of the book. Otherwise, not to worry. There will be a $200 available credit card purchases sometime after October 6th. This is just a very special sort of first group offering, all right? Only the first 1,000. And so speed obviously is of the essence. And if, in other words, if you become 1,001 or 2 or 3, and it's going to go very quickly to 1,000, obviously, you're not going to get an autographed copy. So I'm going to be stressing this tonight. Now, I want to read you something because I'm going to do something a little different here in a moment, maybe. I got, thank God for the internet, I got a very interesting fax from a fellow named Stan Dale, I think it's Dale, all the way down in Perth, Australia. This thing about the internet, it's everywhere. And here's what he said. Art, my home is too far away to receive your program. I'm in Perth, Australia. But my brother in Tacoma, Washington, speaks very highly of your show and your methods of exploring the dating account. I was recruited by Edward Keller's man, Dr. James R. Maxfield, in Dallas in 1971. This took me to Australia to continue my research into advanced propulsion systems for aircraft and spacecraft. Not long into the program, I disagreed violently with the cover-up of our findings and developments, which I knew could have greatly benefited mankind. I was not at Roswell. I have never seen an alien, to my knowledge. However, I have been involved in advanced research projects which would explain a lot of the so-called UFOs around the planet. We've had over 50 R&D programs, Black, since the mid-50s that were set up to make circular winged aircraft and spacecraft. The former worked on ionized plasmas of CO2 seeded nitrogen envelopes in dynamic motion around and through the core of a disc-shaped craft. The latter used a form of pulsed toroidal magnetic fields to move the craft in space, water, or air. I have seen the inside of one of our own toroidal craft in an assembly area in the desert. There have been numerous test areas that operated under NATO banners and others. One was in Saudi Arabia and was called, I can't make out the name of it, west of the Persian Gulf and in Bahrain as well. I've always known enough to be dangerous to the several factions involved in the use and cover-up of the technology and the alien scenario. Fortunately, someone in these factions has spared me. In exile here in the most remote city on Earth. I do not know how much more I can contribute to the revelation of the truth in these matters, which seem to occupy a great deal of the human consciousness in the Western world of late. I was a cadet at the USAF Academy in Colorado, class of 67. I held both secret and top secret security clearances for our government. There I was involved in a most unique mind training program, which is still classified above top secret. Believe me when I tell you that I encourage you in your search for the truth in these matters. But I also caution you to ask yourself, what will you do when you find out? Will you like the answer? Will you wish you had not found it? I sometimes wonder what it would be like to live life in a sort of oblivious, lemming-like pursuit of worldly stimulus, not knowing what to do, not having seen the things I have seen, things which I cannot prove anymore, but things which are so bizarre that I marvel they have not leaked out in all this hype about the aliens in Area 51. No one seems to have realized the real UFO research areas are not accessible by laypersons. They're under lakes, under bodies, and under the planet's poles in underground facilities. Some are here in Australia, in the middle of nowhere, at Pine Gap, underground, and in South Africa. But the most sensitive ones are at the South Pole. Keller's group used to control most of these until another faction grabbed control of the international groups. Now, I found this to be fascinating, and so, you know me. I picked up the telephone and called Australia. And in a moment, I'm going to try to pick up the phone and call Australia again. No guarantees. But I'm going to see if I can get Stan on the air for a little bit here and talk to us about what he knows. What has banished him to Perth in the land down under. Well, there's nothing like going to the other side of the world, and I think that I have connected with Stan. So let us give it a shot, and to the land down under we go, Perth, Australia. And to Stan, is it Stan Deo? Is it Deo Stan, or how do we pronounce your last name?
That's correct, Art. Thank you very much.
Wonderful, and welcome to the program. Stan, I found the facts, the piece of email that you sent me across this wonderful internet we've got. Fascinating. And so I want to ask you in person, for the audience, a little bit of some of what is contained in the facts. I mean, it is absolutely incredible. First of all, how did you become involved with these kinds of aircraft, with these kinds of spacecraft, with this kind of research? What were you doing that got you involved?
Well, first of all, I went to the Air Force Academy as a cadet, and at the Volunteer Academy, I was inducted into a special, black project, I suppose to be the best word to use, an intelligence project, which did teach me a lot of physics and is not mainline stuff. When I left the academy, I went back to Dallas, Texas, where I was raised. And a few years passed, and I did private research in developing a new kind of propulsion for aircraft that would, in essence, make a circular winged flying disc, using a plasma, a moving plasma on the surface of the wing.
All right. Already, Stan, you're going to get ahead of me now. We've got to reduce this down to what the average person can understand. I'm a little technically minded, but when you begin talking about new propulsion systems, explain to a layman how that might work.
Well, all right. Most aircraft have to race down a runway until they can get the relative airspeed up to the point that it lifts the craft off the ground, reducing pressure on the top of the wing. These kinds of craft that I was designing did not have to have a runway. They were like a vertical takeoff device that would swirl around them in a vortex, out the center and around and underneath. And like a bumblebee, they would then lift into the air and fly by pulling a vacuum in front of them, never pushing their way through the air. They could go very fast. Somewhat like a smoke ring at 20,000 miles an hour.
Oh my God.
Can you tell us where this research took place?
Well, what I was doing was in my own private lab at home, a lot of mathematics, electronics tests. I never really figured out how they knew exactly what I was doing, but Keller and Maxfield people from Lawrence Livermore approached me privately and knew everything I was doing. They had been there and done that in the mid-50s, a long time before me. So,
all right. And how did that, as they approached you, on what basis did they take you way down to Australia?
well, Dr. Maxfield's exact words are something to the effect of, my boy, don't ask now, just understand that Australia is the place for you to finish your research, not here. We're going to make everything available for you there and send you down there and send you to. Look, they had over 50 projects like this since the mid-50s in the United States, or at least started there. Some had moved offshore down to the South Pole and into Australia, apparently, near the center of Australia. I did not know about those until they called. I didn't even know they existed until these guys, collared me. I still don't to this day know how they found out what I was doing.
You say here, I was not at Roswell. I've never seen an alien, to my knowledge. Now, the craft that you're describing, that you say that we have, are exactly the craft that are being seen all over the world and are being called, frankly, flying saucers. Would it be your contention or belief that most, if not all of these, belong to us?
Let me divide it this way. Before 1952, I don't believe that any deciding contacts were ours or were man-made. After that, yes, a great deal. But in 1958, worldwide research in over 100 companies and universities across the planet working in those propulsion systems and publishing them like that in the trading journals, electronic journals, and aerodynamic journals stopped publishing in the same month all across the world as those on invisible hands that put a muzzle on not just the U.S. government, it went across national boundaries. And after that, public information was about zilch on electrophysics, propulsion, or anti-gravity.
All right, is that what it is, Stan? Is it actually anti-gravity? And I guess I've got to have you explain it again. If it's anti-gravity, can you explain how it works? Can you, again, remember, we're just poor lay people.
All right, two things. When I first started this, I was designing an aircraft which used air that has been slightly heated in temperature, heated a lot, and had electric current running through it over the top of the propulsor case. This caused the air to move in a tight pattern around the craft up to the core and swirl like a bumblebee. Like instead of having a propeller, you have electrons moving the air around the craft. Now that's an aircraft. Later development, or earlier development, I didn't know about the time, in the U.S. research, had developed some very complex toroidal coils, smoke ring-shaped flat coils. They look somewhat like the Pharaoh's headband, if you can remember that, when they've got the little stripes running around the headband of the Pharaoh's little ring that he used to run his head. Anyway, these craft did use a very complex interacting pulse, electric current, and magnetic field. And they generated an effect that would, in effect, bend gravity. Now, I didn't develop those. I came along afterwards. I did see photographs and had it explained to me in the assembly area. But basically what happens is they can use a very small power source and pulse it at the frequency that is just right for the circuit they designed in the craft. And it will store up energy in the form of moving magnetic field and current, which switches from one circuit to another at right angles.
Stan, I've got to stop you here for a second. You know what you're describing sounds remarkably like what was described to me in simpler technical terms in regard to that old famous Philadelphia experiment. I've, of course, interviewed Al Felix many times. And what he talked about is fairly close to what I seem to be getting from you.
Did Al say that?
Well, something close to it. In other other words, pulsing magnetic fields with RF, rotating RF fields at a certain frequency. Does that sound familiar?
Yep, very close. I am familiar with the Philadelphia experiment.
So then the technology that you heard used there is close to what you are describing now.
Yes. As I said to you in the letter, Dr. Frederick Tapper, Atomic Energy Commission in London, contacted me a couple years back. He's a friend of Einstein. And he and Dr. Einstein had discussed the Philadelphia experiment and implications of it. And they wanted to, well, he was dead by that time, but then Dr. Tapper said to me, I would like for you to explain to me what you think happened, and I will put this as a battery, but I'm not going to tell you, confirm it, which I did do, and he confirmed that I'd understood the process correctly.
All right, Stan, we have a great echo, of course, and a great time difference, and a great geographic difference, so I'm going to ask you to hold on. We're here at the bottom of the hour. There will be 4 minutes of silence. Don't let it bother you. Just stay right where you are, which happens, by the way, everybody, to be Perth, Australia.
You're listening to Mark Redley, Silver in Time on Premier Radio Networks. Tonight, an encore presentation of Coast to Coast AM from September 14, 1995.
Australia, and Stan Dale. Stan, are we still connected?
Yes, Art. I don't have any echo on my side. Do you on your side?
Only occasionally. It's actually a better connection, Stan, than I get sometimes with Las Vegas. So it's a good connection. There is a little bit of a delay. That's not a big problem. Now,
you know, we are the most remote city on Earth.
Is that true?
That's true.
What time is it there, by the way?
It's 2:37 in the afternoon on Friday. And I can tell you, it's sunny. You'll have a good Friday.
Well, if the weather pattern's old. Listen, now, how many years did you work on these kind of craft?
In the States, probably about 3 or 4. I guess I did work on them from about 68, 69 to 71 when they sent me down to Australia. And I made contact with my intelligence group down here.
Would it be your view that the technology in the Philadelphia experiment was the genesis of what led toward the kind of work you did?
If not, it was certainly a main part of it because there were other offshoots to propulsion. There's a way to convert just heat energy from the surrounding environment using something similar in a prompt action like that. So a lot of things came out of the Philadelphia type research.
All right, well, I have always thought that it would be impossible, even if everything about the Philadelphia experiment were true and men caught between decks and all the horrible things that we heard about, that they would just drop the technology and quit investigating. That seemed impossible, and what you're telling us is they didn't.
That's correct.
So if you're kind of like where the Philadelphia experiment went, I guess I would think of you that way. Now, we got these craft and they're flying about. Why has this technology not yet been made available? Because, my God, it would be a power source, it would be all kinds of things that would benefit mankind. Why don't we know about it, except from you?
Well, Art, you sound kind of like I did back before down here when I really got cranky with the fellows that I work for here in that area. Because I said to them the very same thing. Why aren't we sharing this for people that need this technology to survive? Hundreds of millions of people need it. And they kind of told me that I didn't understand the situation about the factions, the groups that are vying for control of the entire planet. And that they couldn't just release this to create havoc and precipitate war. I didn't buy it. And that's where we parted company in very unfriendly terms. I wanted to make it public, which I certainly started doing it, and they didn't.
Well, you are, and I should tell the audience, an author. You have written something called The Cosmic Conspiracy and the Vindicator Scrolls. What are those books?
Well, the first book I wrote 18 years ago as kind of life insurance. I name names, and they've never ever come back on me. I've talked about Teller Maxfield or John Williams, a lot of them that were involved in my particular intelligence group in the cover-up. And I wrote that book so that they would know that I was prepared to tell that much and would go further because they would get off my back. And so we came to a stalemate for 18 years. Now a lot of those guys are not even in power anymore, or if they are, they're not quite as strong as they used to be. So I think it's probably time to say more.
Well, okay, I would like you to be able to use your own words and tell us what you know exists and where it is. In other words, tell us as much as you can. And would you view yourself as putting yourself in danger right now by doing this?
No more than going into traffic in New York City at rush hour.
Is that because you're in Perth, Australia, and not here?
No, believe me, there's no way you run from some of the crowds that they want to get you. It's because there are factions, fighting factions, and some of them are covering me at the moment that I'm quite, unassailable by this. Where to start? Well, let me put it this way. We have technology to have made flying saucers. That's the simplest way to say it. They are saucer shaped. Some of them are triangular with kind of rounded corners. The Aurora projects that everyone thinks are so big and wonderful are nifty, but they are 10 to 12 years out of date. Certainly, you couldn't possibly believe that they would let something like that leak out like this unless we're out of date. I mean, even the model makers are selling models of the Aurora secret craft, but they use portions of technology that were used a long time ago in building the first saucer craft, and the portions are like high voltage charges on the fuel stream and on the wings, up over definitely over 20,000 volts, and in some cases probably 20 volts to 15 million. And they use very tight shields on them. These things are old technology. The newer craft are being controlled by groups. I couldn't even begin to tell you the names of the current controllers. But in my day, the United States and Great Britain still had a fairly hard